build blockchains. It's usually sort of the, executives running them. You built the XRP ledger, and I'm curious what you see. What has changed out there? What projects are exciting, going to work? What are, what's going to fail? Thinking of just like, the dApp ecosystem, which seems a bit of a flop. And then you have projects like Definity. I guess where's it all going?
So I'm kind of saying the jury's still out on the decentralized finance space. I think it could be really big, and I think it could collapse. I think it's going to depend on what other developments there are and what it has to compete with. There's a real shortage of actual use cases. Like payments are here. We all know that international payments need to be improved. We all know that like you have these walled gardens and that payments need to be better. And if you're looking at things like lending or security settlement, there's always a payment going on or multiple payments going on in those same things. So I think that's really concrete and really ready to happen. The further away you get from that, the more sort of speculative it gets. People look at things like lending. Some of the early efforts, I don't know if you heard about the story with DAI, with the interest rates shooting up and the lack of governance. So I think the jury's out on that. I will say one thing that I think is going to be huge is micropayments. This gets a little out there for this audience maybe, but I think micropayments are going to sort of take over the world the way packet data kind of took over the world. I think that if you can make small payments very cheaply, and you can make billions of them without a problem, then you don't need anything else. You don't need some special way to make larger payments.
Yeah, tell me more about, I wrote about that recently because it's near and dear to my industry. I've covered media for 10 years, and even 10 years ago, we're like, micropayments will save us, because right now you hit a paywall, maybe you want to read that sports story, the local newspaper is like, subscribe, blah, blah, and you're like, nah, and leave. If there's something in your browser, you could just click and pay 50 cents to read. Is that close, or when do you think that's going to come, and who's going to bring it to us?
So there's actually a web monetization standard. And what you do is there's a protocol called Interledger, which is a payment protocol that allows you to have a sort of receiving address that's universally understood. So why is email so great? You give me your email address, and that's all I need to know to contact you. Interledger does the same thing. Whether you receive bitcoins or dollars or XRP or whatever, you can have an Interledger address as long as there's someone who speaks that protocol who can receive the funds for you. The way this web monetization protocol works is you just put a tag in your web page that says, this is where you can send me money. And then your browser has a plugin. There's a company called Coil that's a web monetization provider, but anyone can do it. And what they do is they make a plugin for your browser that reads those web monetization tags and just sends them money. So if you go to a website, instead of seeing like, we need to raise $50,000 to stay online, you'll see thank you for donating. Or if they have a members only area or a paywall, you'll just go right through it and you'll see a message that like, thank you for sending us money through web monetization. Coil made 1 billion payments last year, with the average payment being like 1,000th of a penny. So it's effectively streaming money. And what's nice about that is if you pay a certain amount of money to go through a paywall and it was a clickbaity article, you can't get the money back. Like 50 cents is enough that it's worth trying to trick people into getting into that article. But if you're streaming the money while they're on there, and your web monetization provider can be like, these guys are terrible, we're just not going to send them any money, or these guys are great, we're going to send them a lot of money. And I think that's super important because a lot of the privacy issues come from advertising. A lot of the reasons that like the internet sucks comes from the advertising model that websites use that force, if I'm going to give you an ad, the more I know about you, the more you're worth to me. Whereas if you're paying me to access my site, none of those privacy issues become a problem. So I think that's really big.
That's exciting. So you're saying within a year or two, we might all have like a little digital wallet with some, Bitcoin or XRP or stable coins in it and just stream the money to the sites we like?
Exactly, in thousands of a penny increments or even smaller.
Huh, very cool. And I'm repeating myself, but how far away are we from that?
Well, we have it now. It's just a matter of adoption. All of the technology is here. So there's still connectivity needed, like, how can I get money in with like a credit card? Coil already does that. I pay Coil $5 a month on my credit card, and they stream money to the websites that I visit. And there are websites now that will thank me for donating. So it's happening now. And what makes that work is this idea that we can make payments ridiculously cheaply. The payment is no more expensive than any other like internet request. And I think that's the magic that makes that work. And we could build enterprise payments on top of micropayments. You can do anything with micropayments, just like you can do any data thing with packets, as long as you can send enough of them, same thing.
Very cool. We are almost out of time. I promised we'd play the game that they like to do here called overrated, underrated. So I will give you a word, and you can only say overrated or underrated. Facebook.
Overrated.
Ethereum.
Underrated.
Bitcoin.
Oh boy, I'm going to say overrated at the risk of, but under protest.
Okay.
Ask it with an asterisk.
All right. Jamie Dimon.
Overrated. I'm going to get in trouble for that, aren't I?
All right. EOS.
Overrated.
Ripple.
If I don't say underrated, I'm probably not going to have a job.
God's gonna call you. Yeah. All right. On that note, thanks very much for a really interesting conversation. Let's give it up for David Schwartz.